So we are going to take a look at completing these steps. These steps will actually complete basically 2 assignments for Module 1 and actually help you get started on the HTML1 project, which isn't due till the next module. So kind of getting you started. One of the biggest challenges I see for students in this class, along with organization, is first organization, and then second is managing the whole GitHub situation. So I would like you to follow these steps that I do with GitHub. As you get more skilled, you may decide that you're going to use a different method to clone your accounts or whatever. But if you just follow these steps, it should be pretty simple for you to do. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to decide where on your computer you're going to save your files. So this is an assignment in Module 1 where I ask you, where are you going to work on your computer? And I'm not asking you where are you going to work in your office. I am asking you, where will you save your files? And the reason why I ask you to do this, step 1, decide where on your computer you will save your files and keep that as a very conscious thought, is because one of the biggest issues that I see is students will, try to make a repository in their 2 different folders in their documents and one on their desktop and this, that, and the other. And then they make changes and they say, but my GitHub's not working. Well, it's because you're saving your files in one folder and you're connected in this repository in another folder, and it gets very confusing. So I want you to make sure that you decide where you're going to work on your computer. 2 common places are inside of the documents folder and on the desktop. So you may make like a web 1 folder on your desktop and put everything in there, or you just may allow GitHub to create a GitHub folder inside of your documents folder. But whatever you do, keep that in your head the whole class. Okay, so after you decide where it is you're going to work, and I have decided that I am going to work inside of my documents folder, and I didn't have to create this GitHub folder. The first time that I cloned an account, it created this GitHub folder for me. But you can create that, or you can make a folder called Web1 or something. But I know that my websites are always going to be in this folder. Always, always, always. Okay, so I've done that. So my next step is to create a GitHub account. So you're going to go to github.com right here. And then you will create an account. I already have an account, so I'm not going to walk you through there. But a GitHub account is free. Do not go for the professional accounts or anything. Just do the free public accounts and run from there. Okay, so the next thing that you need to do the very first time that you create an account is you're going to need to download the GitHub Desktop. And you can do this at github.desktop.com. You're going to download and install this. And you'll hear me refer to this all the time as the purple cat because of this purple cat, hence the name. So when I say open up the purple cat, that's what I'm talking about. And I already have this installed, so I'm not going to go ahead and do it. It's here in my applications. I am working on a Macintosh. Yours, a MacBook. Your results may differ because if you're on a Windows machine. Okay, so I have that. I have this installed, so I'm good to go. Let's go to the PowerPoint and see what is the next step. Okay, so I'm going to create a new repository. So you can create, this is what you're going to be doing for every project from here down to here, 4 through 10. That is going to be what you do every time we have a new project. Okay, so our first project, to make a new one, I can either hit this green button or I can go over here to the plus and say new repository. And I can say, you can just say HTML1, but I'm sure that's not available because I've demonstrated this so many times. You can call it whatever you want. Our first big project is going to be HTML1. So you can name this after the projects just to keep stuff in order, whatever makes sense. I will tell you that you're going to hear me always say, always only use lowercase numbers and no spaces. That doesn't necessarily have to be true for your repository name, because this is just the stuff that will help you keep things organized. It doesn't actually appear on the web page. So when you save page names or save names of images and things like that, you only will use lowercase. Here, it doesn't matter. I can say that. Okay, so that's fine. I'm going to make sure it's public. I'm going to add the README. I don't need to worry about the license, and I can go ahead and create this repository. So now it's created. Let's see what the next step is. Go to PowerPoint. I'm going to clone the repository, and this means taking a copy so that what is on my local machine and what is on GitHub online is going to be the same, so I can work in one and then move things upward. So there are many ways to do this. The simplest way is to do it this way. So this is a way for this class I would like you to do it. I have this here. I'm inside of my repository. By the way, if I ever ask you to give me the URL of your repository, you will copy this and give me that. This is what the repository looks like. It's actually inside the GitHub Desktop. And that's going to be important because I'm going to show you something else, another URL that I need, which is your Git page. But we'll talk about that later. So this is your repository. This is the address. Okay, so to clone it, I'm going to go to this green code button. And I am going to go ahead and open with GitHub Desktop, which is that software which I have already installed. If you have never logged in, if this is your very first repository, it's going to ask you to log in. So here's my GitHub Desktop opening up, bouncing down here, my purple cat. Okay. Not now. Okay, so let me redo that again, because I think that error came up. So let's try this again. Open with GitHub Desktop. Okay, so I think that other menu made me close that. So sometimes you need to do stuff twice. It's not a big deal. Okay, so I can see here that this is where this is in my GitHub. So this is the address of my repository. And this is the local path on my machine. So remember I said I was going to save everything in my documents folder inside of that GitHub folder, and then it will create it there. So this is correct. Make sure you know that. This is the most important right here. This is where 99% of my students go wrong, is because they don't pay attention to their local path. Make sure that it's going to the right place. If it's not, you'll hit choose. And you can go in here and select where in your computer it will go. Mine's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clone it. This gets really confusing for those of you who are on a Windows machine and you have that like OneDrive thing. Make sure that that is part of your address and you know how to manipulate and how to move around inside of the files on your computer. You should really know how to save and locate files on your own system. That's important. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clone this. Okay, so now here inside of this GitHub Desktop, I can change. I have a multiple, you've seen me do in my video for the class, you probably saw me create these. So I have multiple repositories, so I can flip around and change between the repositories. So always make sure that you are on the proper repository. Okay, and now I can go into here and I can go to my documents. I can go to the GitHub folder and I'm going to double check. Here's the folder that was just created and it has the README file in there. Don't ever mess with that README file. GitHub will do all the, GitHub will modify that file. You don't ever have to open that. That's just something that GitHub knows what it's doing. So you just leave that alone. Okay, so this is perfect. I'm going to leave the purple cat open right now. Let's go to PowerPoint and see what the next step is. Okay, so I already created my repository, cloned it. So my next step is going to the Dreamweaver, and I'm going to start making files for this. So I want to connect that folder that I created to my Dreamweaver. And you don't have to do this. You have to do this every time you create a new site using Dreamweaver, or every time you create a new repository, you have to do this once. You don't have to do it every single time. Maybe every time you go to a computer and make the repository there, you have to, but okay. So I'm going to go to Site, New Site in Dreamweaver. I'm assuming we're all using Dreamweaver. If you're not using Dreamweaver, you're going to have to figure out how to do this on the software that you are using. I will help you if you want to connect with me, but there's always going to be some way that you are identifying the location of the folder where you're starting. Okay, so I'm going to call this, I think it's usually handy to name this after the repository, just so you don't get confused. It's handy to have it have the same name. So now I'm going to go into here. I'm going to select that folder and choose it. Now you can see over here in my site, and you can also, I'm in the standard web layout. Sometimes people may get into different layouts where it doesn't look like this, your Dreamweaver. I am in standard. Okay, so I am in the correct folder. If I have multiple sites set up inside of my Dreamweaver, they're going to start showing up down here. So these are 2 different sites that I have. These are different places, different things where I can go on my computer, but here are my different sites that I've already created. I want to make sure that I have the correct site selected, which I do. And here are my files. So if you're going to like open up and re-edit your index file or something from here, always do it from inside of these files, because then you will know that you always have the right one selected. So right now I don't have any HTML stuff done. But let's go here. So I'm going to make a new page. I'm kind of getting into the HTML1 project now for module 1. So let's go back here. I'm going to say HTML. The title can have capital letters, whatever, because this is something that will appear on the tab. What the title is here, that's what this is. This is the title of that page. GitHub Desktop, simple collaboration, blah, blah, blah. That's the title, the stuff that appears on the desktop. So you can have spaces and capital letters and stuff in there. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to create. And I'm going to say File, Save As. And this is very, very important. And you'll notice in the PowerPoint, I am going to save this page. I'm down here as index.html. I'm going to make sure that it's index and it has all lowercase letters. This is another area where my students get confused because they'll start calling it like first page or home page or something. And the problem with that is that servers, including GitHub, does not recognize that as the first page. It needs to know what the first page in a site is, especially like say you save 10 web pages inside of this site. It needs to know what the first page is. And the way it knows that is by calling it index.html. Now, our next project, don't worry about all of this stuff to like connect GitHub through Dreamweaver. Please don't mess with that right now. You may want to in the future. Like I said, there's like 5, 10 innumerable ways to do everything. But if you try to start crossing and combining different ways without really understanding stuff, you will get confused. So right now, don't deal with the GitHub stuff inside of Dreamweaver. Okay, now we're kind of getting into the HTML1 project. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this, but I'll tell you a little bit more about this in class next week. Okay, so this is the head of the document. The head, just like on you, the head goes above the body. This is the body. Everything that deals with the page but does not actually appear on the page itself goes inside of the head. Also, an important thing to note is that these things right here, whenever you have these carets, I'll call it like an open tag and close tag. These are tags and they have, or open caret and closed caret, I'll call those. You'll see that these are matched. So I have an opening HTML and a closing HTML, and it wraps all around everything on here because everything on this page is within those HTML tags. It's all HTML. I have an opening head tag and a closing head tag, and everything that is within the head is between these two tags. Same for body. I also have this is a H1, that's a header, and it's not just a way to make things kind of show bigger or smaller, it's a way to organize information on your page. You have your opening tag, which is this, and your closing tag, which is that, and the contents go in the middle. And that's how the tags work, but that's very simple right here. I'm not so worried about this. We'll get more into all of that stuff in HTML1. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this page. And now if I go back to my GitHub Desktop, my purple cat, you'll see that I created the index. It's showing up here. And my code is showing up here in green. That means that this is stuff that was added. I could have stuff that also shows up in red. This is giving me a little suggested title. And I'm going to take that. So let's talk about what this is doing. GitHub does not save every keystroke that you make. It wants you to like do maybe a half an hour or an hour's worth of work, get stuff to where you like it, and then you take a snapshot, and the snapshot is called a commit. So I'm going to commit this creating index. Yeah, I probably would do a lot more work on this before I did the commit, but I'm going to commit to main. And now it's taken that snapshot and it's on my local machine, but now I need to push it up to the internet so that people can see it all over. So I can give the address to Grandma in Albuquerque and she can see my projects because she can go to the web. And I'm going to do that just by hitting this push button. Right, now you can see that there are no changes because I haven't made any changes. But the cool thing is over here in history, I can see my previous commits. And so if I want to go back and see what was that code, how did I do that before, I can actually see all of my history. So that's the cool thing about the commits and the snapshots. But now let's go over here back to GitHub because I want to show you how to make this be a Git page. So we're here, we did our changes to our first page and we did our commit to the desktop, took the commit, took the snapshot, and we pushed to the online repository. So we're good. So now I want to talk about making a Git page and the difference between a repository and a Git page. And then we will be done. Okay, so here I am in my repository. If I refresh this, look, my index is there now because when I use the GitHub Desktop, it actually pushed that page up there. And this will push things up, like if you should put all of your images inside of a folder and things, it will push up the folder structure and everything. Everything has to be exactly the same as it is on your local machine because it's a clone, right? It's got to be identical. It's a clone. So this is my repository address. And this is what my repository looks like. That's not what you want to show Grandma in Albuquerque, is it? No, it is not. So I want you to make a Git page. So that's where we are now. So I'm going to go to settings. And I'm going to, down here, I'm going to go to pages. Now I'm going to go here to branch and I'm going to go to main because we don't have any branches. Branches are like if you're testing some different code or you have different versions or something, you may have a branch off where you're doing something a little different. We only have one branch. And we will only, for the purposes of this class, ever have one branch. So I'm going to say main, and I'm going to save. Okay, so here we are at the repository, and I'm going to go to settings, pages, and I'm going to, since I had tried this yesterday and there was some trouble at GitHub, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. Save it. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this branch. I'm going to put it on main, save. And this should only take a couple minutes. Again, if we have too much time, I'll know something's wrong. But I'm going to actions here and I can see that it's working. Again, these were all the ones I tried yesterday. I said, you know, they should only take about 4 minutes. And these were taking this long before they timed out. And so I looked at the GitHub status page, which is right here, githubstatus.com. And right now, what we're looking for is actions, and actions are normal. So this should work okay. So you don't have to do this. Seriously, in all of my years of using GitHub, this is the first time I've seen GitHub have trouble creating the pages. So, and it looks like it was successful. Well, no, it's still going. It's not green yet. So it's in progress 1 minute ago. Let's go back. Oh, I got a green light. So now that's a page there. Let's go back. So now I have this address. Your site is live at GitHub. So I can go ahead and I can copy this address. Whenever I say I want your Git page, this is a page that I want. Let's go ahead and visit the site. And there we go. There's what I had typed on the page.